You must not know how to read, you black woman, Judge Harrington jeered, his booming voice shaking the courtroom walls. This is a court of law, not a circus for ignorant monkeys. I thought you'd at least know how to dress for trial. Is that too difficult for you? Muffled chuckles rippled across the benches. Amelia Gabrielle Carter stood at the defense table, her posture dignified despite the cruelty hurled at her. Her hair was tied into a neat braid, and she wore a simple navy blouse and a gray skirt. Her right hand gripped a cane, not from weakness, but as a reminder of battles she had overcome. She didn't flinch. Do you even know why you're here? Harrington asked with a sneer. Should I draw it out in crayons for you? Amelia remained silent. The hum of the air conditioner seemed louder than the room's shallow breathing. Swear her in, Harrington ordered. Then, low but audible enough for humiliation, hopeless, Amelia lifted her gaze. Proceed. The clerk, visibly shaken, swore her in. But before she could speak, Harrington cut across her words. Can you read, Miss Carter? Or should we use flashcards with jungle animals? Perhaps a monkey would help you understand. Snickers spread again, though uneasily. Amelia stepped forward, her lips parting. Shut up. Harrington roared. You speak when I allow it. Who do you think you are? A single tear slipped down Amelia's cheek. Look at her, Harrington smirked. Crying already. Always so fragile, unless they're rioting or looting. A murmur stirred the gallery. One woman shook her head. A bailiff turned away, shame plain on his face. What's the charge again? Harrington asked carelessly. Fraud? Forgery? Certainly not writing her own name. Finally, Amelia's voice rose. I stand accused of silence. The judge slammed the gavel. Enough. But her tone grew steady, unwavering. Your Honor, she said again, so firm that he blinked in disbelief. Who gave you permission to speak? He spat. My name, she declared, her voice rising with each word, is Dr. Amelia Gabrielle Carter. I was born in Chicago. I am 34 years old. I speak 4 languages. I graduated summa cum laude in political science and legal studies. I earned my Ph.D. in constitutional law from Yale University. The room froze. I was summoned here by mistake. Another woman with a criminal record shares a similar name. I do not have a record. In fact, I am the one who identified the forged documents across 3 languages and reported them to the authorities. Murmurs stirred. The prosecutor shifted in his seat, suddenly uneasy. I have copies of the emails. Hard evidence was sent to your office, but no one reviewed them. The judge's jaw twitched. I am not the problem, Amelia said clearly. I was the warning. A pen clattered to the floor. In the gallery, a woman began filming with her phone. And one more thing, Amelia added sharply. I'm not Miss Carter. I am Dr. Carter, Senior Human Rights Advisor to the Senate Judiciary Committee. The courtroom went still. The side door creaked open. A tall man in a tailored navy suit entered, carrying a briefcase. And who are you? Harrington snapped. The man raised a gold badge. Special Agent Marcus Rivera, Judicial Integrity Division, Department of Justice. This case has been under observation for months. Gasps filled the air. Harrington's face turned crimson. This is my courtroom. I will not tolerate interference. Amelia's voice was calm. You call this justice? This isn't Harlem, Harrington snarled. We don't parade fake degrees here. I've seen your kind, pretending to be more than you are. Just another black woman with delusions of grandeur. The gallery erupted with sharp intakes of breath. A young man clenched his fists. It's over, Amelia said quietly. I decide what happens here. Harrington thundered. Rivera stepped forward with an envelope in hand. Not anymore. You've been under federal investigation for years. Racism, abuse of power, obstruction. And this hearing confirmed it all. The judge paled. This is a trap. This, Amelia corrected, is justice. The rear door swung open again. A silver-haired woman entered in a cream suit, glasses hanging from a delicate chain. Her stride was firm, deliberate. Harrington's face drained of color. What are you doing here? My name is Elena Marquez, President of the National Council on Judicial Ethics. I am here to enforce your immediate suspension. You can't, Harrington sputtered. Dr. Carter was dragged here on fabricated charges, born of your bias and prejudice. Enough. Your authority is over. The room swelled with whispers. Dozens of phones were raised. I have something to say, Amelia announced. Marquez nodded. The gallery hushed. For years, Amelia said steadily, men like you looked at me as if my skin was my crime. I studied. I worked. I endured. Not to prove something to you, but because I always knew my worth. You never ask who we are. You only ask how much you can break us. The jury held still. You were wrong about me. But how many others have you been wrong about? How many black women were dismissed as dumb only because they were denied opportunities? You humiliated me, and I know you won't apologize. Men like you never do. You don't apologize, you lose power. Her voice carried through the silent hall. I want this moment preserved. I want young girls, black girls, to see it, to know they can rise. At that instant, the rear doors opened once more, and yet another figure stepped in. 2 weeks later, Office of the State Attorney General. Are you sure about this? Asked a lawyer in a gray suit, eyeing the thick complaint before him. More than ever, Amelia replied, placing a prepared folder on the desk. Inside was a detailed accusation against Harrington. Racial discrimination, abuse of authority, obstruction of justice. They protected him for years, she said firmly. But for years, he destroyed lives. Removing him from the bench isn't enough. He must face the law like anyone else. The Attorney General studied her in silence, then nodded. We'll begin the process. 3 months later, State Criminal Court. Harrington now sat where defendants sat. No robe, no gavel, no power. He avoided the cameras, but could not avoid Amelia's steady gaze. She stood, not as a victim, but as the voice of countless others. I speak not only for myself, Amelia declared, but for those silenced by this man. People who never had the chance to speak against him. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Recordings, ignored complaints, testimony from staff and defendants alike. A portrait of a man who had used law as a weapon. When Amelia took the stand, her words were clear. This man humiliated me. He tried to reduce me to nothing. Not because of what I did, but because of who I am. This wasn't an isolated act. It was a pattern. This trial is not just for me. It is for every voice he suppressed. She turned to him directly. You are not above the law, and I am not beneath it. 6 months later, sentencing day. The jury found Harrington guilty on multiple counts. 12 years in prison, no parole, stripped of all rights to public office. Amelia stood in silence as he was handcuffed. No triumph, no joy, just truth that as he passed, she leaned close. Now you know what it feels like to be judged for what you did, not what you pretended to be. He said nothing. Epilogue. Dr. Amelia Gabrielle Carter was invited to speak at Harvard and later at the United Nations. Yet she returned to her roots, defending those ignored, unseen. She did not fight for revenge, but because she knew what it meant to stand before a judge who denied her humanity. And she knew the power of finally being heard. 1 year later, State Correctional Facility Medical Unit. Are you sure you want to see him? The guard asked softly. Yes, Amelia answered. But not for him. She entered the sterile hallway. Behind glass sat Harrington, frail, pale, a shell of his former arrogance. A nasal cannula kept him breathing. He raised weary eyes, then looked down. He reached for the phone. She did the same. Thank you for coming. His voice was broken. I didn't think you would. Amelia said nothing. I have terminal cancer, he admitted. Weeks, maybe days. All my life, I thought power meant control. Mocking, humiliating. I was praised for cruelty, but I was never strong. I was weak. When you spoke that day, I realized it. I saw what I had destroyed. I can't undo it. But I want to apologize. Not for myself, for everyone I harmed. Amelia's gaze was steady. No hatred, no pity, only truth. I didn't come here to forgive you, she said. What you did cannot be erased. I came to tell you this. You try to break me. You failed. Who I am doesn't depend on your judgment. It depends on what I chose to become, even when no one saw me. Tears streamed down his face. When you leave this world, she continued softly, take this truth with you. You didn't break me. You made me stronger. She hung up the phone and stood. Justice exists, Mr. Harrington. You proved it. She turned and walked away, the door closing behind her. Harrington sat alone, clutching the dead phone. For the first time in his life, he had nothing left to say.